Johnson. Well done, Manchester United.
Beckham. It's a Sheringham. And Solskjaer has done it. Radisson saved it. United again. Ready. A magnificent goal by Robin van Persie.
Welcome to United Hour, your official Red Cafe podcast for all things United. I'm your host, Nick.
I'm Craig.
And I'm Ashwin.
Yeah, we've got our international lineup back again. UK to Poland to USA. It's not going to be the most positive of podcasts, I don't think. I mean, we're recording Monday night, had 24 hours to stew over, lost to Newcastle. Also going to be covering, obviously, lost as well to Tottenham. So, 2 away losses in a row. Can't remember the last time we've actually recorded talking about 2 league losses. There is a couple of wins in there as well since we've last recorded, beating Huddersfield at home and going through in the FA Cup against Yoevil. But I guess we've got to start with the most recent game against Newcastle. A bad day in the office for sure. Ashwin, what's your immediate thoughts on that one?
I thought that we created a lot of our own issues. We didn't capitalize on chances that we created, or we messed up the final ball in to play somebody in. So it's just, I think it's been a recurring issue at times throughout the year of just not being clinical when we have the chance to either get ahead or put the match away. Even against Huddersfield, I mean, it didn't matter because they were so awful in that match, but it should have been more than 2-0, right? We should have scored more at the end of that match. And it's easy to overlook that stuff when you win, but then you have a match like we did against Newcastle, and that's where not capitalizing on those opportunities affects you. And then obviously there were other issues with the match too, just from issues with perhaps the formation, where players are playing. It does seem that Sanchez coming into the side has obviously everyone has to kind of recalibrate a little bit. So that's probably an issue for us right now that needs to be addressed moving forward. Yeah,
that probably is, for me, comes to the heart of it. I mean, we recorded just before Sanchez was official, and since then he's made his debut, played a few times, and he in himself has not played badly. But remember, we had a bit of a discussion about where should Sanchez come into the team, who should he replace, and I think we kind of thought he should replace Mata, and he should come in on the right because we don't want to be taking Martial away from the left. But that's exactly what's happened. And to me, that really has destabilised the team after, we'd been on a pretty decent-ish run. Not amazing, but we were motoring away. And I'd actually talked about how we'd started to get a bit of a settled lineup with like Martial doing well on the left. Pogba was playing pretty well. Lingard had come into the team. And, Mata had taken this right-sided role. And they said, we've got a bit of a settled play there. Everybody's getting to know it. And then, Mourinho seems to have thrown that right out the window and started from scratch to accommodate Sanchez in on the left side, Moose switching over Martial to the right. And it seems to me a bit of a strange decision, really. I mean, maybe he's thinking for the long term. He obviously wants to play Sanchez where he thinks is his best position. But for me, that is a big part of the problems we've had in the past couple of weeks, really. Craig, were you happy with Sanchez coming in on the left? How have you thought he's been performing in general?
I mean, he has been performing well, and he has been one of our better players. But I do think him being on the left is a big mistake, considering that Martial was doing the job there already. And Sanchez can play on the right. He's done that before. Whereas Martial does have a bit of trouble on the right, and the left is clearly his better position because it lets him cut in and use his right to shoot. Whereas cutting in from the right-hand side, he has to try and either cut in a lot more than usual, or he has to have a very small area to shoot for. And it's not good for him. Like, he should be coming in from the left. I think Jose has made a huge mistake in that, to be honest. It's one of the things I did fear would happen, but I thought that Jose would be sensible enough not to do it. I thought he would chuck Sanchez on the right and keep Martial on the left, but he clearly thinks he knows best. In this occasion, it's one of those things that I think he's got massively wrong. But luckily Sanchez has been playing well anyway. It's just you want the whole team to be playing well, so you want Martial to be playing well as well, which he played quite well against Newcastle, but obviously being on the right, it did stifle him. I think there was one moment where he did have quite a good opportunity to score, but because he was on the right hand side, he didn't have enough space to actually get the shot off properly, so he didn't get it. And I think if he had done that from the other side, it would have been a certain goal. So I think that he needs to switch them back. Like I thought after Spurs, he would have realised that it should be the other way around, but obviously not.
Yeah, I think that there's two ways I think that he could go about approaching it. So if he's stuck on 4-2-3-1, which it seems like he has this, fixation for making this work, he just really wants this to work. I think he needs to drop Lingard, which sucks because Lingard is actually, he has had that really great stretch right around, during the holiday period, and he kind of forced his way into the starting 11. But I just don't like the balance between when we have him and Sanchez and Martial. I just don't like the balance between those three behind the striker. It seems like Lingard and Sanchez often are making similar runs or pop up in similar areas. And so I'm not necessarily a fan of that. And I think the balance would be better served if he played Sanchez in behind the striker, moved Martial to the left, and then brought in Mata to the right. We did that actually towards the end of the Newcastle match, and I thought that we had some of our better, more controlled periods of attacking. Towards the end of that match, we actually almost scored right at the end. Carrick had that. I think it was Carrick. He almost was able to deflect a cross in, but the keeper stopped it, I think, at the end. But either way, I just thought that we looked better in possession when we switched into that setup. The other obvious, we should probably talk about. We will, I'm sure, talk about Pogba too. But the other, way he could approach it is to switch to a 4-3-3 and just give us more balance in the midfield, because it seems like right now, even against, I'm losing it a little bit. I think against Burnley, going back to the last pod. But I thought the midfield was exposed in that match a bit too, and they were very easily able to bypass us at times. And Newcastle, especially before they got the goal, while we were clearly the side that had more possession, it didn't feel like we were in control of the match. The match felt very open, and there were some periods where there was transition opportunities both ways. So. It's just the play gets stretched, and that's fine. Obviously, that happens at times, and I think to some extent Mourinho wants that with some of the attackers he has, like with Sanchez and Lukaku and Martial. I think he wants to create space for them to run into, to have chances in. But I'm sure that he also would like to control matches, and I don't know. Right now, with Pogba just seemingly in really bad form, and Matic kind of. His legs don't seem all the way there anymore. So it feels like we need a third. We could definitely use a third body in the midfield at times.
Yeah, I guess a lot of these themes are things we've talked about in various podcasts before. Pogba especially, what's his best role? Should he play in a 2? Should he play in a 3? I know we had a big discussion about this maybe 2 or 3 episodes ago. And, I was very strongly saying that to me, he needs to play further forward. He's not disciplined enough to have those defensive responsibilities. And when he has that much freer role to attack, he seems happier and the team seems to play better. But Jose seems fixated on trying to turn him into this total box-to-box player where he can do the defensive stuff and do the attacking stuff. And yeah, maybe at that, for a 90 million player, he should have the skills and he should have the discipline to be able to go into that kind of role, but it doesn't seem to be happening. And, we had quite a disagreement on this. I think it was Alex who was saying, look, he didn't see why Pogba shouldn't be able to play in a 2 and that he just needs to kind of adapt to it, really. So, yeah, that's one way to look at it. But, yeah, I mean, this match against Newcastle, it started. I mean, Newcastle pressured us straight from the off, and they had a couple of kind of early half chances, and we took a bit of time to get into the game. But to be honest, after about 15 minutes, I felt that we were going to win that game. We came back into the match. We were actually playing all right. Made a few chances. Martial missed a very good chance, and there was a couple of other openings here and there that really, should have been put away. And, going into like half time, I didn't feel like there was going to be any big issue, really. I thought, look, we'll sort this out. We're going to win this match. It just depends, when we score, how many we score. But yeah, obviously it didn't go that way. Never mind the fact that I think it was about every 5 minutes that the commentator in this match mentioned that Mourinho had never won a game at St James's Park. It is literally like we should have had some kind of sweepstake on how many times they're going to mention this fact. But yeah, it is one of those kind of hoodoo problems that he's had, and yeah, it just kept it going.
Ground.
Yeah, exactly, bogey ground, and yeah, kept it going on. And yeah, there is obviously that bit of history as well between our friend Benitez and Mourinho. Never mind, Benitez had good history with Fergie as well. So yeah, an old favourite of ours. And he's a favourite of yours, right, Craig?
Oh yeah, I love the Spanish waiter with his facts. And yeah, I can't stand Benitez, man. He's one, like with most Liverpool managers. He manages them and he buys into their ridiculous theories and conspiracies. And he turns into some kind of weird scouse tool. And I don't know, I haven't liked him since. Can't stand him.
Yeah, it is difficult to separate him from that old Scouse manager, isn't it? Feel a bit more sorry for him nowadays in this Newcastle job where he's not really getting much support from the owners there, and the owner wants to sell the club and all that kind of thing. But yeah, we're not going to feel too sorry for him after he's just bloody taken 3 points off us. But yeah, look, I mean, the press have been giving a lot of kind of plaudits to Newcastle as if they kind of played us off the park. And personally, I don't really see it like that. I just think that, with a bit better finishing, never mind getting a draw, we should have really won this game. I mean, Newcastle, they did play pretty well, better than kind of expected, but that's what happens every time we go to these grounds and, the teams play the kind of game of their season, whether it's whatever, Huddersfield, Burnley, Newcastle, every time they seem to turn it on when we come in, so it's not that much of a surprise. But yeah, like I said, I felt pretty comfortable-ish at half-time. We hadn't been great, but I thought, look, we'll surely get a goal, maybe 2. We're going to get the 3 points here. But yeah, the big disappointment for me really was after we went 1 down. After that, it didn't really feel like until very late on that we were going to get that equaliser from anywhere. I don't know how you felt. I mean, you, Ashwin, were saying you thought that we were playing better after the substitutions.
I thought that, not immediately after, but I thought in the last... I guess the better way to say it is I didn't feel they had as many opportunities after we made the substitutions. So even if we weren't necessarily creating a lot, it felt as... I mean, and partially some of that is, once they scored a goal, they weren't going to be as, not that they were expansive anyway, but they weren't going to actively try and score necessarily after that either. So that plays into it as well. But I just thought that we were more patient in how we play. It's really hard for me to explain. Sometimes I think that when we play, we really struggle to penetrate and create openings against defenses that sit in. And so, in situations like that, I just think that having Mata, he kind of drifts into a lot of different areas on the pitch, and he's one of the few that makes runs ahead of the ball, right? He makes different kinds of movements that Sanchez and Martial and they're more direct with the ball. When they get the ball, they will try and do something with it. But I don't know if their movement is as good as Mata's, and he kind of just like helps create these little overloads, and he'll play quick 1-2s and things like that you kind of need to break down these defenses. And I don't know. For me, I just thought that after the Tottenham match, there was no way he was going to start the same attacking four away from home again. And he did. And, I just, when there is space to attack, sure, like we look good with those players. But when Newcastle got bodies behind the ball, it didn't feel like we opened them up at all. And, when Mata came in, they were just sitting behind the ball. But we did create a couple of decent chances after that. And really, I thought that we should have equalized at some point. Martial had a couple on the set piece. I think it was a corner, might have been a free kick. I don't remember exactly. That got blocked off the line. Young had an opening actually where he came into a lot of space in the box, and he couldn't get the curl on it that he wanted, so that the goalie saved that. They were just, and then Sanchez actually, I don't remember if that was before or after the substitutions. Might have been before, but he had that opportunity where he got past the keeper, and then I don't know if he thought, maybe he didn't think that he had the balance to do it, but then he kind of hesitated and then he hit it, and by that time the Newcastle player had come back and was able to block it.
Yeah, that one needed to go in. It just looked like he was just going to smash that in.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I know he was slightly on the turn and not facing the right way.
Just hit it, right?
For a player of that ability, yeah, you should be able to just smash that in. Really, I saw some various people trying to dissect why he hadn't managed, because I don't know, like the pitch was like this and he was facing this way. But look, come on, it doesn't really. That one should have been in the back of the net.
Lukaku didn't contribute anything in that match, really, which again is like, I think that there are times where we don't give him enough service. But look, there was a ball towards the end of the match where Carrick tried to play a long ball for him in behind the defense, and like Lukaku didn't even compete for the ball. Right, like he kind of ran, but then the ball was a little bit behind him, and he totally could have stopped in time and tried to jump and compete for the ball, but he just didn't. And I don't know, to me, and this is something we should definitely also talk about because it relates to our weaknesses and set pieces. Like, for such a massive team, it feels like we are just huge pussies half the time when it comes to like competing for aerial balls. It's really incredible to me how bad some of, like, I mean, the goal, we should probably talk about that, but Pogba and Matic, and it's like, this isn't one time, right? This isn't just against Newcastle. Like, we lost to City because we suck at defending set pieces because they played balls into our box. Like, it consistently feels like we give away good chances against set pieces, and then also, for a team that does play a lot of long balls like we do, Lukaku just is not good enough, for me anyway. I don't know. I know I've seen some stats in his thread about how he wins a lot of aerial duels, but to me, when I watch him play, he does not feel like a striker that is very good at holding off defenders and when the ball comes in the air and playing some, I don't know, it just never feels like that's really his strength.
Yeah, I mean, before we get on to the goal, let's just talk about Lukaku. I mean, I actually don't agree with you. I actually thought he had an okay game, not brilliant, but yeah, again, I do agree, and I've said it on 2 or 3 podcasts, that I'm surprised at how poor he is at the kind of physical side of being a striker, as in hold-up play, winning the balls in the air. I thought he was going to be a lot better at that, and as I've said several times, he is actually a lot better at things like passing, linking up, and he made one damn good ball in this Newcastle game as well that should have ended up in a better chance from there. I think it was either Sanchez or Martial, but again, it's those kind of moments where it seems to be his bigger strengths.
Yeah, he's better running the channels than he is kind of, holding up the ball when you loft it up to him.
Definitely. His hold up play. I don't think we play to his strengths because we're playing the style of football that works for somebody who's really good at holding up the ball. And in fact, last year, Zlatan is actually good at that and does it pretty well. Obviously he's past his best and whatever, but he is good at that hold up play and then bringing up other players in. And we're still playing that way, even though Lukaku is not suited to that kind of game. And that is something which is a major issue for us. And I don't know whether Mourinho just thinks it's something that's going to come soon and we just keep doing it and Lukaku's going to get better at it. And in fact, Mourinho's always played that way. He's always liked this kind of one man up front who's a big guy who can hold the ball up. Obviously, famously, it was Drogba at Chelsea, and he's had other similar kind of strikers who do a lot of hard work. Yeah, exactly, at other places. So, that's his style, and he wants that kind of striker, but I don't know whether Lukaku fits into that mould. It seemed on paper that he would do when we signed him, but like I say, the things that I see as his strengths are very different to what I initially expected. So I'm not totally in agreement with you that he had a bad game.
It's not necessarily that he had a bad... there are chances... for me, if he is... he doesn't need to be... he's not world class, right? But if he's an elite Premier League striker... he just needs to be more clinical. There was one, I think it might have been it was in the first half, I think, where Sanchez played it into him and then he shinned it and it went, 20 yards wide.
Yeah, I know exactly.
And then there was another one, I think, in the first half where, he gets the ball on the turn and he takes the extra touch to set himself before he shoots it and lets the defender come in and block it. And it's things like that where it's, the best strikers. I was thinking actually when he missed that second chance, or not missed, I guess, she got blocked. But I was thinking, Van Persie wouldn't have needed that extra touch. He would have been able to get the ball, turn, and shoot. He would have needed the touch in between, and that's the difference, right, between being a good striker and a great striker. And right now, when I watch Lukaku, I can't tell if he just doesn't have that ability or. I also think at times when I watch him, it feels like he's trying to be perfect instead of just have a shot. Just shoot the ball. It's so frustrating with a lot of, and it's not just him, because Martial does this a lot too. Sanchez did it a couple of times this match, where you're in a good shooting position, but then you try to take one more touch, and it's just shoot the damn ball. You're in the box. You have to have shots. You have to be willing to take chances, even if it's not the perfect, most ideal look that you're going to have. You just have to shoot sometimes. And I know that I've seen people on Twitter, because Kane, right? Harry Kane, he shoots a lot. He shoots constantly. And I've seen people try to criticize him for that. And he's a striker. He has to shoot. And if he's showing you that when he does get shots, he's basically good for a goal every match. Right? So sometimes it's just a matter of increasing the volume of shots and not necessarily just the quality of them, even. Because there are just times where, Martial did it in this match too, where I forgot who it is, somebody played it into the box as he was coming across onto his left, and instead of shooting, he tried to take a touch and it got cleared away after that. But it was somewhere between the 6-yard box and the 18-yard box. So, it was 12, 13 yards away. You don't have time for a touch there. Just smack the ball, right? Just hit it. And
to be fair, though, to Martial, he's been pretty clinical in the last few weeks.
Oh, he has.
And, his finishing is actually pretty damn good. But, again, it's this thing of switching him over to the other side and whether that's slightly kind of unbalanced him and, he's not as comfortable there. To me, that seems pretty obvious.
I thought he made some good runs, though, actually, in this match.
Hey, he should have scored. He got in the right places. He had enough chances. He should have got a goal. And, I don't know whether we can just put this down to one of those bad days in the office. Listen, we had the chances, like I say. We didn't play so badly. The Tottenham game was much more worrying. We were never in that match. Obviously, lost an early goal and, started basically 1-0 down in that game and then I mean, all right, we had chances here and there, but I never really felt like we were coming back into that one. And that game worried me a lot more. I mean, like I say, you get
Yeah.
these kind of Newcastle results now and again. You can just say, yeah, look, it's one of those days. Keeper is making his home debut, and he's new keeper who's just come in the January transfer window, and obviously plays his blinder against us, and last minute blocks and all that kind of thing.
Yeah. I would probably not feel as upset if we didn't get so embarrassed by Tottenham in the previous away match. So that's true.
Yeah, like I say, because it was those two like back-to-back away games, and we were hoping for a bit of a. I mean, Newcastle on paper, of course, it was one we all expected a win from, so that was the biggest problem. Then, I mean, look, let's talk about the goal. So yeah, it's coming up to whatever. I think it was like the 65th minute, and Chris Smalling obviously has been vilified quite a lot after this game. And I'd say, yeah, he definitely deserves some stick. I mean, he gives away the initial free kick for a start for a little bit of a bizarre kind of dive or something. I'm not even sure what exactly he was up to there. But yeah, I think it was a deserved yellow card and free kick. But still, it's not in a particularly dangerous situation, this free kick. It's like way out. Should be plenty of chances to clear this ball. And yeah, it just seemed like such a routine one, really. Ball comes in, long one to the kind of towards the back end post side. Nobody challenges. It's Lejeune, or was it Lascelles, one of them who goes up for the ball, wins it absolutely unchallenged. Then it comes down, Smalling versus Gale. Smalling gets beaten to the ball there. And then, yeah, the guy's just got an absolute open net to aim for and, yeah, bangs it in. Matt Ritchie. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of blame you give, first of all, obviously, to Smalling. And then, yeah, it's Pogba just standing and watching. I think it's his man, although there's also...
Matic was there too.
I think Matic. Yeah, Matic. And Mourinho, in his post-match, very clearly notes, he says, yeah, two guys did not challenge here. And, yeah, it's something I've noted. I don't know whether he was substituting Pogba... I know we had a quick chat about this before because he was blaming him for the goal, but I think, Ashwin, you noted that these substitutes were already getting ready before that free kick had even taken place.
Yeah,
right?
That's what it looked like to me, because I saw him talking to Carrick before the substitution was made. So I actually watched this. I watched it after I knew the result because I wasn't at home, so I watched it, and yeah, so I was like, I knew when they were going to score, right? So I thought, and I also knew that Pogba had been substituted. So I kind of assumed, just from what I had heard and saw, that, he was culprit in conceding the goal, and then Mourinho took him off. But it looked like when I watched it that, he was already planning on putting Carrick in, and, that he already did something similar against Tottenham, right, where he just took Pogba out to change things up. So I don't think it was necessarily related to the goal. I just think that he was not pleased with whatever it was that Pogba was doing wrong. I'm not sure what exactly it was. He wasn't having, again, like this. It was weird because when I watched the match, I thought he got off to a really bad start, Pogba. But then as the game went on, I thought that he was. He was playing some creative passes. He was getting forward quite a bit, and he was linking up well. It was definitely much better than his performance against Tottenham, for sure. So that was obviously not that that's a high standard, but that was good to see. But I'm not sure if it seemed like he just wanted him to play deeper than he was because it was leaving Matic exposed. But yeah. For whatever happened, it was not a good goal for him or Matic. It was like, I think it looked like Pogba was about to challenge, then he saw Matic getting ready to challenge. Like, it looks like they both thought the other person was going to go for it, and then neither of them went. And obviously from there, Newcastle took advantage and scored. So, credit to them, obviously, for taking advantage. But it was really sloppy.
Yeah, there was question marks over as well whether Pogba was injured, whether he was fully fit. I think Craig, we'd had a couple of messages, hadn't we? And you'd said, oh, he was limping pre-match in the warm-up, and I don't think he was fully fit.
See, I like obviously Jose said at the end that it had nothing to do with Pogba being injured, but I think Jose was just trying to save face. Like that, he knows that Pogba wasn't 100% after getting a knock in the warm up or however he did it, and he can't admit he was wrong. So he's trying to say no, he wasn't injured. It was just I decided to change it tactically. But I do think that Pogba was playing with something wrong with him, and
that makes a bigger deal out of it. Almost, makes it a much bigger issue than if he just said, actually, Pogba wasn't 100% and I kept him going and had to take him off after an hour because, he had a little bit of a knock or whatever. But for him to then come out and say, no, he wasn't injured, actually makes it into a much bigger issue.
Well,
now.
Because that's the thing. It's like it's Jose. He's got this like huge ego, and obviously if he does admit like that Pogba was knocked before the game and that he wasn't feeling it 100%, then that's Jose admitting, yeah, I fucked up. I shouldn't have played him. But he's the kind of guy who wouldn't admit that. He'd much rather say, I just took him off because of this. I don't think he'd ever admit he was wrong in this situation. And Pogba, and there's obviously the question about Matic as well. Like Matic is apparently been nursing a bit of a knock as well for a while now, and that's why his form has dipped. And
I think he's played so many matches, hasn't he? I mean, some players do just seem to have been totally overplayed this season. I mean, earlier in the season, talked about Lukaku needing a rest. Matic as well has just played so many matches. I mean, all right, I know Fellaini's been injured, and right now Herrera is injured, and at the start of the season we didn't have Michael Carrick for a good few months. So yeah, there is various reasons around that, but still, it does seem like we're almost making our own trouble there.
If he's injured, or we know that Matic has been whatever, he's not at 100%, but he's able to play. Why wouldn't that make sense then to put an extra man in midfield to give him more cover? If he can't, if he's already extending himself, maybe you want to save him a little bit. It's the one thing right now that's really irritating me with Jose, because I think that he's gotten there's a lot of things that he gets too much criticism for, but him being so stubborn about 4-2-3-1, and how many matches have we even played with the three-man midfield? It doesn't seem like many, and it seems like a very bizarre thing to not. Last year we routinely played Pogba, Fellaini, and Herrera, right? Like that was routinely a midfield selection that we selected. I think that was the midfield against Chelsea that in the 2-0 win at home, right? So like he has played them he has used three-man midfield at United in big matches previously, but in the last few weeks it just seems like he's so set on this 4-2-3-1, and I don't know if Carrick is extremely old, right? We don't know like what he has left. McTominay is like he's eager. He's very eager, very energetic, but he's also young. So he's not the most experienced. But it seems like either having Carrick come in to add more control and just kind of a calm head in midfield, or bringing in McTominay to just give us some more energy, more legs, more somebody like that's willing and able to be disruptive to provide more cover. It seems like one of those options should be something that we explore. And one of the things with Jose through his career has always been he's very pragmatic and he adjusts well to opposition. And like even in this match, the substitutions he made, he didn't change the formation. He didn't. It was just like for like substitutions essentially.
Yeah, they were actually pretty weird substitutions in a way because Carrick comes in for Pogba, Mata comes in for Lingard. Then he kind of ends up telling Carrick to sit, and Matic seemed to be pushed forward, which is not his position at all, and just seemed slightly lost there. But then 10 minutes later, he takes out Matic, throws in McTominay, and I think after that, it did get a little bit better, but I think slightly all right. His hand was forced because Herrera and Rashford are injured at the moment, so they weren't on the bench. So we didn't have a lot of options. I mean, most of the other players on the bench, I think all of them actually were all defenders. Who was there? Rowe, Shaw. So yeah, he only had more defensive options after that. I mean, I guess the only other things he could have done were maybe bring in Shaw and throw Young forward or something like that. So he didn't have maybe that many options. So yeah, he went for the players like Mata, like Carrick, that he thought maybe they'll get a bit better passing in and try and unlock this kind of situation. But yeah, until later on, we didn't really create that. And I said I was disappointed in that. After we went one down, I didn't think there was enough of a reaction that, all right, there's some hard work, but we didn't create enough. And I just, at that point, I didn't feel like we did enough to really win that game. Whereas earlier in the match, I thought the goal was coming and we were going to take the points. But yeah, for me, that reaction after going one down is the big disappointment.
Have we come down from a match away from home since Jose took over?
You mean come back after being
down? I don't think we've come back and won a match away from home.
Only one.
Yeah, our stats after going one down have not been good at all. Yeah, what was it, Craig? We've only won one.
And we've lost 20 of them.
Yeah, Middlesbrough last year, I think, was the only one that we won.
And yeah, we used to obviously be famous for coming back from behind under Ferguson. That was his forte. That, you always felt, even if we went one down, that we were still going to come back into this match and we knew we were going to create chances. And that has been the big disappointment for me.
You're disappointed with the defending of the goal?
Sure, of course. It's a lateral free kick. It's not even a lateral free kick from a dangerous position. It's really far from the goal. Clearly, the positions were the players. They know the positions they have to be, but we miss the challenge in India. I remember clearly, without television, but just with my memory from the touchline. I remember clearly a Newcastle player jumping, and two of my players looking at him and staying on the floor. So the guy won the ball in the air, and then the second ball in the face of David.
Against Tottenham, that we started that game pretty much one down before anyone even managed to take their seats. And then, all right, we came back into it a little bit, but obviously Tottenham are going to just sit back after that and wait for their opportunities. And then, before we know it, 2-0 down.
Who did you think was most to blame for that opening goal?
Smalling.
I just think it's a collective fuck up. I mean, again, it's something Mourinho talked about. He said, we actually talked about this, that Spurs are going to come in that side early on, and they're going to go for... He actually said it was literally something that had been mentioned, and still the players managed between them to give them an early opening. It's not the first time either. I remember big match against Chelsea last year that we were like, before you even knew it, we're 1-0 down. These are big worries that things happen again and again.
Just one off like a bad day in the office today?
I don't think it's very normal to concede a goal like we did after 15 seconds. We did that last season at Stamford Bridge. This season we had one, but was after 1 minute, lateral free kick. But after kickoff is ridiculous. Especially ridiculous because the players, they watch it before. We analyze opponents, we work on opponents' dynamics and routines. The players, they knew the long ball. They knew Harry Kane normally is already inside before the kickoff. He's already inside the opponent half. We knew everything, and then we don't press the ball. One mistake. We don't win the ball in the air. Second mistake. We don't win the second ball on the ground. Third mistake. We don't cover inside. The fullback inside when Eriksen comes. 4 mistakes. 4 mistakes after 15 seconds, and you are losing 1-0 against a good team. Then I think a good reaction. I think for 10 minutes, 15 minutes we had a good reaction. We played in their half we create something, we were close to it. The feeling was we are in the game. But I think the second goal, I don't say ridiculous, I just say unlucky. Unlucky is a different thing than ridiculous. Unlucky. And then after that, Tottenham has the game in their hands, and they can play the way they are better. They are very good in counter-attack, and then they compact, they press well, and the game was in their hands.
I mean, for me now, I supported Smalling a lot last season. He was getting a bit of stick, but now I'm starting to say, all right, somebody else needs to be given a go, really. Obviously, Eric Bailly is out. I still believe in Phil Jones. Don't have too much of a problem with him. But maybe, it's time for Rojo, Jones, something like that. I mean, they don't really maybe suit each other because it's who plays on the right, who plays on the left, that kind of thing.
Well, they played together last year. We had a pretty decent stretch, I remember, when they were paired together, Rojo and Jones. So, I don't know. Maybe it's something that he can go back to. I'm not sure if he... Because Rojo, when he first came back after his injury, he looked kind of shaky. But, I mean, and granted, it was Huddersfield, but he did look good in that match. Not that they posed much of any kind of threat at all.
Yeah, I mean, look, we should actually, it's not been all doom and gloom, so we should mention, since we last recorded, we have actually won 2 matches. Progressed in the cup against Yoevil, was actually Alexis Sanchez's debut, and that was a pretty good win, but obviously against very lower league opposition, so 4-0 rolled on in the cup. And then we had the match against Huddersfield at home. It was quite an emotional day because it was the 60th memorial for the Munich disaster. And sometimes when you have these kind of emotional situations, it does play on the team. So I remember, I think it was their 50th anniversary and we actually ended up playing City and we lost that game. And it was almost that kind of whole history and the whole story off Munich overshadowed the match in a way, and the players didn't really get up for it. So I was thankful that on this occasion it didn't happen and we managed to make up for losing out to Huddersfield in that first game. I remember Imran, of course, is a local Huddersfield lad, so I think he was begging that we didn't mess up this one because after years and years of playing his local team, he couldn't have handled not winning one of those 2. But of course we should mention that Pogba was dropped for this game.
Right.
I mean, he did. There was also Jones, Martial, Pogba, all came out the team, and McTominay was the big starter here. I know Craig, he's been a favourite of yours all season. I think it was even November time. You were saying he needs to be given more minutes. So this was really a big call for him to put Pogba on the bench and let McTominay start. And I guess you must have been ecstatic that day, right?
Yeah, I had the party poppers out straight away. Setting them off every time I saw McTominay on the pitch. Bam! Shouting, "Yo, McT!" My neighbours must have thought I was having a fit or something.
But I thought he actually had a pretty good game, actually. I mean, What do you like about McTominay? Because I've discussed this with a few other fans, and everybody says, look, he looks good, whatever, but nobody's quite sure what his real assets are and what his big positives and what makes him stand out. So what is it? What was it about McTominay that you saw that you wanted him to be getting more chances?
Honestly, what makes him stand out most is that he doesn't stand out. I know it doesn't make much sense, but let me say this, right? Sometimes in teams you have the players who, big stars, they do everything amazingly. They're going to do everything. You have the players who are shit, who everyone hates, and for some reason their manager always plays them. Smalling. And then you have the players who they do everything competently. They do what is needed to be done, and they don't do it with errors. They just get on with it. They do it, and they're the kind of players that at the end of the day they're the backbone of a team, because they without them there is not enough balance between the shit ones and the amazing ones. You need those ones there to provide solidity, and that for me is what McTominay does. He's a good passer, a good tackler, a good runner. He does everything well. and that's what I like about him.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's true. He does everything well, doesn't give the ball away, doesn't make too many mistakes. He doesn't seem to stand out in any way, which is what people often think. Look, if you're going to be a starter for Manchester United, you've got to be an amazing passer like Pogba, or you've got to be banging in the goals, or your defensive whatever. And he just seems to be this kind of midfield all-rounder. I mean, I do keep a little bit of an eye on the kind of youth teams, and McTominay was never really a player that stood out. He wasn't somebody who was mentioned as the next big name who's going to make it, and people were a bit surprised when he was promoted through. But he's actually had this ridiculous growth spurt. I don't know if you heard about that.
Yeah, it was like
2 years ago, he was something like 5 foot, 8 or something, and in 2 years he's gone from like 5'8", 5'9" to I think he's like 6'3" or something like that. He's a big lad now, so he's had a crazy growth spurt in like 2-3 years, and he wasn't even playing midfield. I think he was a striker. Has been pushed back.
He hasn't scored yet, but he makes pretty interesting runs forward when he does decide to go. He almost got on the end of a ball at the end of this Newcastle match, which I think it was Lascelles that cleared it away at the last second before he was about to shoot. And then against Huddersfield, he almost scored, I think, right? Was it Huddersfield or it may have been Yoevil? I don't remember. He almost scored in one of those matches. Might have been Yoevil, I think, where he got a shot blocked. But yeah, I don't know. Sorry, go ahead. That was actually surprising you said that, because I was going to say that the one thing I do really like about him that hasn't resulted in anything yet, but he just seems to have a good timing about making runs forward. And it's obviously very hard to credit that when he doesn't have anything to show for it yet. It's just something I've noticed. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but
he did actually score a couple of goals in pre-season, I remember. He had a pretty good pre-season, got his name on the score sheet a couple of times. So I think he does actually have that in his game. To get in the box and finish here and there. I do remember him scoring then. So yeah, it's not something that's... And like I said, I think he has played more as a striker in the youth team. So yeah, he should definitely be able to start chipping in with some goals if he starts playing. I think that Mourinho does like him because of his physicality. He likes these kind of big, strong midfielders. And it looks like maybe Fellaini is not going to be staying on. Carrick is obviously not going to be lasting, I don't think, past the end of this year. So, yeah, I guess it's forward planning to look at bringing in a more, stronger midfielder to do that kind of role. And maybe he is seeing him for that kind of, to take Fellaini's place in the squad as we go forward. I mean, he's definitely got the physique for it.
He's tough, too. He took a lot of challenges against Huddersfield. He got a lot of little kicks and...
Well, it was a blatant penalty. It was absolutely ridiculous that we didn't get a penalty for that. The guy gets nowhere near the ball and just absolutely smashes him.
But he doesn't make a meal of it. He doesn't, roll around. He gets I don't know. There's something about the way he carries himself, which I think is what Craig was kind of alluding to. He's not trying to be something he's not, right? He's not playing like expansive 60-yard diagonals or anything. He's in the team. He knows what his role is, and he goes about it with his head down and just gets it done. And I think sometimes you just need functional players like that in certain situations. I don't know. There's something about him. I kind of agree with Craig. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but there's something about him I like, and it's hard to really nail down what exactly it is.
Yeah, the main thing is anyway that Jose likes him, and I think he's going to get more chances. And I always like seeing any young players get a chance. It was a big thing that was talked about before Mourinho came to the club. Will he give the young players a chance there? And, he's given Rashford plenty of minutes, and he's bought McTominay. McTominay is the first one he's kind of actually bought through, whereas, we might have expected some other players like, I don't know, Tuanzebe, Fosu Mensah, somebody like that. But, McTominay has been the one that he's bought through. Did also give Gomez, we should give him a quick little mention, got a few minutes at the end of that Yoevil match. I think he was our youngest Premier League kind of player, got a couple of minutes right at the end of last season and came in just for a quick cameo at the end of that Yeovil game, but looked a very exciting player for the future. Almost got himself on the score sheet. So yeah, he's definitely one to watch out for there. I do know though, Craig, haven't you? Because if people don't know, our Twitter there, and in fact, if you're not following us on Twitter, please get on that, United_hour. But yeah, it's Craig who runs our Twitter there. I think you've been having a bit of fun with a few Huddersfield fans recently, haven't you, after that game?
Yeah, because they're really easy to wind up because they all seem like they have the collective IQ of a plank of wood. And that's insulting for the plank of wood, if I'm honest. It's just easy, man. Like, I was talking about how they're thugs. I was calling them Thuggersfield. And how it was a blatant penalty, and like seriously, like they're acting as though it was a fair challenge. Like it's as though they've never seen a fair challenge in their life because it was nowhere near the ball, for instance. But they're easy to wind up, to be honest. Like they get triggered so easy. They get triggered easier than a millennial these days. I honestly hope we batter them in the FA Cup now, just to shut them all up. And I hope we do it by diving in the box and VAR misses it and we score the penalty to win it, and then they'll all shut up and stop being so annoying.
Yeah, that is actually our next matchup is Huddersfield in the Cup. I know a lot of the United away following are hoping Birmingham won that replay because it's obviously more interesting than going to Huddersfield again. But yeah, it's Huddersfield who got through over there. And yeah, it is going to be the first United game where they're trying the VAR video refs in there.
Smalling won't be playing. We said the same thing.
What, penalty on every corner, yeah? I mean, I don't know what you two guys think, but I am not a fan of this VAR at all. I think that is something that's ruining the game, like slowing it down. And there's still big debates about all these decisions. It's not clearing that much up at all. And the big thing for me as well is that, as somebody who is a season ticket holder goes to the match, this is something that ruins the game for people in the stadium. And it's totally made for people who watch on TV. So for me, it's another move where it takes football away from the people who watch in the stadium for the benefit of people who are watching at home. If you're sat in the stadium, at Old Trafford, there's no video screens there. We've got, I don't know why, we've got one of the best stadiums, but we actually have really crap scoreboards, no videos, nothing there, no facility for that. So yeah, if you're sat over there and the referee's holding up the game, you have no idea what's going on whatsoever. And you just have to sit there twiddling your thumbs, waiting for somebody to come up with a decision, and then wait till you get home to see what the hell it was all about. I mean, I know in American sports, these kind of things are big, right, Ashwin? Video replays. But those sports work in a very different way. They have natural stops in there, so it doesn't necessarily ruin the flow of the game because the game's, a stop and start anyway. I know, NFL and stuff like that, the way it goes, it doesn't cause any problems because you're constantly resetting up and tactically and everything like that anyway. I mean, yeah, what do you think of the VAR? You think it's something that's going to help the game? Are you for it, against it?
They started doing, in the NBA, they started doing these, everything under 2 minutes in a game can be anything can be automatically reviewed at the referee's discretion, basically. So when they first implemented it, there were just these obnoxiously long delays, and it sucked because it would be, like a 1 point, 2 point, 3 point game, and then you just have this 3 or 4 minute stoppage where no one knew what the hell was going on. And it was really annoying, but they've gotten a lot better with it now. So I think with I'm really opposed to it being at the World Cup this summer. I think that's going to be atrocious. That's going to be, I don't mind them using it in like the League Cup or the FA Cup. I think it's fine that's the kind of setting where they should be experimenting with it and working out the kinks and all that stuff. Because there is like an upside to it, right? There has to be a better way of correcting decisions, because we've seen some of these decisions, and if you see the replay 2 or 3 times, if you see it 2 or 3 times and you can't tell, then stick with the initial ruling. I think that just should be the standard, and there shouldn't be anything more to it than that. So maybe it's just something that I think they need to give it a little time to work things out, and then maybe they can get to a place where the decision is happening quicker and they have a better setup for it. But some of the issue too is just that things are very subjective, like what's a penalty and what's not a penalty. So unless you have some way of creating a uniform standard across the board, I'm not sure how you can apply it. And so if that's the case, then I would tend to say that you're probably right and that it's not really worth the hassle. But I do think it's at least worth trying for right now, and seeing if you can get to a better place with it. But
I think there will be some decisions that are obviously made better. I mean, offside is something that's not that much up for debate, although there is still bits of grey areas. But things like penalties and all that. Yeah, you see it every time now. Even after replays, you see pundits sat there debating it, disagreeing after replay. So these things are not clear. And for me, it's part of football. If you can't say the referee's a wanker and we're calling, then you're losing out. Yeah, if all these things are just clear, that's part of football. Saying the referee's fucked up and moaning about it, and if we start taking that out, then starts taking something out from there. I mean, what about you, Craig? You for or against it?
Truthfully, I was for it a couple of years ago when they started talking about bringing something in. But after hearing about all the delays and the commotion it causes, I'm a lot more skeptical now. Obviously, I'll have to see it in action myself because I haven't really watched any of the games it's been in so far. I'll probably change my mind, once I see it in our game, like if it affects it too much. But
yeah, it will be interesting to see how it runs in our game. Now it'll be the first time we're directly involved in it in our FA Cup game there.
It needs to be done with more fluidity. Like I think they've got it in rugby, haven't they? And apparently it works really well in rugby. Unless I'm wrong. I don't know. I don't really pay attention to rugby.
Yeah, they do have it, and it works well in other sports. I mean, tennis have the Hawkeye replays, and even I think cricket they have some similar things. But as I say, like the flow of these sports is different, and there's natural stops there, and it's not too much of a problem to stop and have a look. Whereas football's totally different, and for me, it just doesn't work at all, and I'm very against it going in this direction. I thought, when they brought in the kind of goal line technology, it made sense because it's a clear thing. Has the ball crossed the line? Has it not crossed the line? The referee gets a message in seconds. It doesn't really delay anything, and it's such an important decision, and it's a clear yes or no. There's no debate there. Whereas there's too many problems for interpretation in a lot of other challenges in football, and that's where the problem comes for me. But anyway, look, we'll see. It's going to be our first game. Huddersfield away in the cup will be VAR there, VAR. And then after that, we're back in Champions League action. Champions League actually kicks off back this week, but we're not in action until next week. Going away to Sevilla.
Unless we've got a date on Valentine's Day.
We avoided that one, thankfully. No clashes there. So, we're a week after going out to Seville. I just was looking at their recent form, and they've been a bit up and down, actually. Just changed their manager end of last year. Brought in Vincenzo Montella, who actually hadn't had a particularly good time at AC Milan and had been sacked. But he's just come in literally at the end of last year, so he's only been in the job for a month. I think since then they've been hammered a couple of times. I think 5-1 and 5 something else. But they have also progressed to the Spanish Cup final, the Copa del Rey. They're going to be playing Barcelona in the final there. And even though, they're not in particularly good form, they're still sitting 6th position in La Liga, I think. In those Europa League places over there. They obviously have had a brilliant kind of cup pedigree in the last few years. I saw that they've been after having not a particularly prestigious history and winning the odd cup here and there, in the last 10 years they've been in something like 17 finals, having won 2 UEFA Cups, 3 Europa Leagues in a row, and a couple of Spanish Cups here and there as well. So yeah, their kind of European and Cup pedigree is very strong. So yeah, even though we're mostly expecting to go through this game, we shouldn't be taking it lightly at all. So even though, in a down period at the moment, they still managed to reach the cup final. So they're obviously a team who are well up for these kind of knockout occasions. And we do not have a good record away in general, and away in Europe even worse. So yeah, I mean, I'll be happy to come away with a draw basically from this away game. Have either of you guys seen much of Seville? Any players to pick out or anything this year?
I have not watched much Seville. I just find some of their, they have a negative goal difference, but they're sixth in the table. They're -5 for the year, -5 for the year. So I don't know. To me, it's like we should be good enough, and no disrespect to them, but with the amount of money we spent, with the quality of the players at our disposal, we shouldn't, playing the sixth best team in Spain, that should not be like you said, you'd be happy with a draw, and I understand that actually, and I tend to agree to an extent, but I feel like we shouldn't be happy with a draw. If that I feel like our expectations should be higher, and that they aren't is somewhat annoying. And yeah, look, I don't know. After watching the Tottenham match, I'm just very. I don't know. I was just. It really made me think about how good are we really, because I mean, to me, you can have a bad match, but that we looked like we make fun of Arsenal a lot, but we looked like Arsenal against Tottenham. We got out. They were more physical than us. They were quicker than us. They looked more structured than us. So I don't know. I'm optimistic that we would advance past Seville and that we can get a good result away. But yeah, I don't know much about them, but I just think that we should be good enough that it shouldn't really matter what they are or what they do. We should be able to go there and impose our will on them, but that's something that we have struggled to do consistently.
I think anyway, away in Europe, these games are never that easy. These two-legged ties, like I say, you've got to be pretty happy with a draw there. But yeah, we coming back to Old Trafford, and obviously second leg is at home. We should obviously expect to win this. I mean, they've actually got quite a few players who should be familiar to Premier League fans. I mean, they've had a couple of City rejects in there. Jesus Navas and Nolito were both over at City in the last couple of years and have ended up at Seville. They've also just had Sandro Ramirez is coming on loan from Everton, although, yeah, he did very little for Everton after coming in on quite a big fee 2 or 3 years ago. Steven Nzonzi used to play for Stoke. Right. And yeah, he's their big midfielder and really has been tipped for going to a higher level than Seville, even being linked with us now and again. So yeah, he'll go from them. Yeah, and then there's other names that should be familiar to people who've kind of followed them winning these Europa Leagues in the past few years, like Iva Banega, a couple of others like that. So yeah, look, they've got a decent team. And obviously, like I say, 3 Europa Leagues in a row. Quite a few of these players have been involved in that. So yeah, they've got a pretty good European pedigree. So yeah, we shouldn't take it too lightly at all. As I said, I've been away with United in Europe, not a huge amount of times, but yeah, probably about 10 times. And I've only seen us win a couple of times in those 10. So I know that we do not have a good record on the road in Europe in general. So like I say, as long as we come out with a draw, and I think we can then come and do it back at Old Trafford, that should be the main thing for me. But yeah, obviously we should be excited that Champions League is coming back in again. I mean, FA Cup is probably our best chance of silverware this year, but if we can get our team together, then yeah, I don't see why we can't have a go at this Champions League. I thought this Sanchez signing would be the thing that could really put us in the contenders for the Champions League this season. The only thing that's gone wrong with that is that, like we talked about before, and maybe we didn't talk about enough, is that I just can't understand why Mourinho's destabilised what was quite a settled team that was getting into a rhythm with, Martial on one side, Pogba doing his thing, Lingard playing well. Lukaku wasn't doing amazing, but he's still getting the goals here and there. And he's just totally shifted it all around to accommodate Sanchez into his favoured position. I mean, yeah, we talked a lot about Martial being moved up, but in fact, Pogba has been moved around a bit as well, even though he's still playing in that midfield too. He kind of shifted him more to the right side, whereas before he seemed to be coming more in on the left side. And yeah, I don't know if he's unhappy with that, whether there's something more going on in the background between Mourinho and Pogba. I don't like to go into these kind of rumour mills and things like that, but there's definitely is something going on there. There's been a few points this season where it's been clear on camera that Mourinho has been talking to Pogba on the pitch and obviously giving him certain instructions, not being totally happy with, and I'm assuming he's telling him about his defensive discipline and to get back into position, whereas Pogba has been pretty open himself that he feels more comfortable playing in a freer kind of attacking role without those defensive responsibilities. And yeah, I don't know how it's almost going to be like a clash to see. I hope it doesn't end up like that, and that either Mourinho can just see that, look, the best way to play it is to bring in another midfielder, whether now Carrick gives us the option of doing that now that he's fit again, it seems, or McTominay, somebody like that, can come in and maybe give Pogba that freedom, because I think that is our best way forward. Get Martial back on the left, let Sanchez is such a good player that it shouldn't be a problem for him to come in from the right. I can't understand why he's gone this way. I mean, all right, you should give some blame to the players and say wherever they're playing, they should do better than they've done in this last few weeks. But to me, it is a bit bizarre how he's unsettled that team there. We'll see where we go from there. But anyway, why don't we get some predictions for this game? Craig, what's your prediction for the Seville game?
Probably 0-0, to be honest. Like you said, away, we're not exactly amazing, and especially in Europe. I think we'll go cautious against Sevilla. So I think 0-0 is probably the fairest prediction I can give.
Ashwin, what do you reckon?
I think I'll say 1-1. It seems that we've been, at least in Europa last year, we seem to be able to score, but then not do much more than that, and then generally would concede some annoying goal after that. So, 1-1, I will say. Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, I'll be happy with a draw, but since you two have covered 0-0 and 1-1, I'm going to at least say I think we'll nick a 1-0 here. I think we'll actually play pretty defensive ourselves. As you said, Seville have got a negative goal difference, so it's not their goal scoring that's been getting them up there. I think it's even their defensive game that's probably stronger for them. But I doubt this is going to be a classic high-scoring game or anything like that. But yeah, Seville can score a few goals. They played Liverpool in the group stages, and I think they were 3-0 down and came back to 3-3 in that game. So yeah, there is goals from that team. As I said, I'll be happy with a draw. Let's hope we can get a 1-0 from there, and as long as we take them back to Old Trafford and get through to the next round, that's the main thing. I'm just, really looking forward to the Champions League getting going again, just because, obviously the Premier League is a write-off for us, although, we've got to still fight for our even top 4 Champions League place now after losing these recent points here. But let's look forward to the Champions League getting on, and rolling on in the FA Cup as well, hopefully. So a bit of a focus on the cups. There is Chelsea, the little matter of Chelsea after that. So it's a pretty big run of games here now for us, FA Cup, Champions League, and then Chelsea coming in there. Mourinho's not had the good record in these big games this season. Obviously that Tottenham game has made his record even worse. So we've not got that much time to preview it and see maybe if we try and record before that game, because I know we're way over the hour mark already here. But big run of games now, and let's see if we can sort out what the tactics, what the formation is. Big questions being asked by everybody, and let's see whether Mourinho can come through it there now. I think that's about it probably for this week. Like I say, we've gone over the time. Been plenty to discuss, not been the most cheerful of podcasts, but hopefully better things to come, right?
Hopefully.
Yes, hopefully.
Hopefully. All right. Good night from me.
Good night from me.
Good evening from me.